I'm Bolo, and I am the flex and entry for TSM. You are watching R6 NAL.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back where we saw Mirage get their first win of the day as they won 7-3 on Clubhouse, knocking out Beast Coast in that series. But this matchup right here is going to be TSM versus Soniqs, two teams that are tied with one more Dark Zero to be first here in the NAL. I'm your desk host, Veli, Jesse, Jacob. Let's break things down. First things first, let's talk about TSM. Jacob, there's two players on this roster, man, that you were so hot for. Gio has been going lights out, and there's also another player that Jesse has been raving for. Who are they?
Well, so here's a cool stat. Within the top 5 rated by Siege GG right now, of every player in the North American League, 2 of them are on the same team. 2 of them are on this team. Achieved and Geometrics, and Bolo, Trell, and Merc are also there, but Achieved and Geo too are the ones that we have been paying attention to this entire time, and they have been lights out so far for TSM. It's crazy to see how much impact they've had. Achieved a 1.24 rating with Geo not too far behind at a 1.21. Surprisingly, neither one of them are really even playing on the same roles, so it's not like you can call them like an entry duo or a crazy roam duo or anything like to that effect. Both of them do stick to their own strengths on the team, and they play so well. They had a little bit of a hiccup in week number 1 against Beast Coast, but as we've kind of seen since then, that was a bit of a fluke. It was only a small hiccup, and now they're coming back in full force and showing us why. They won the November Major, they won the US Finals, and maybe even a little bit of a preview about what SI is going to look like for them.
Oh, what are you trying to say, Jacob?
I mean, they've been doing really good so far. I just want that momentum to stay up, for them to stay on fire, because right now, I was a little bit concerned about that Beast Coast loss, but now at this point, it doesn't really matter because they're showing their true colors.
I love that Jacob manned up and came out with that. Jesse, let's talk about week 1 until now when it comes to TSM. The one thing that's always been big about this roster is we've always wanted to see TSM firing off on all cylinders. Every player in every role having their moment. And so far, we've seen it consistently from Geo. You've praised Achieve, but when it comes to attacking Soniqs, I think that right now, what we see from TSM, we can see a deadly attacking lineup.
Oh yeah, I mean, TSM lead the league right now at 61% attacking rate. It's actually tied with their defensive rate, but 61 for attack is the best of any team in North America, and that's pretty crazy considering most attacking win rates are in the high 40s. So 61's very strong from TSM. A large part of that is what we've come to expect, right? TSM are the coordinated, skillful team. These are players that will win their gunfights. They don't have a problem entering into the building and getting in the site and getting their frags. But going against the Soniqs, the Soniqs are, on the other hand, the best defensive team in the league. 72% on their defensive win rate leads the league there, and they have been playing a lot of defensive-sided maps. So they played Oregon twice and Clubhouse twice, but their defenses have looked rock solid. Even against teams like Dark Zero, they've done a good job of locking out the boys in purple and really not showing too many cracks and not showing too many opportunities. Yeah. So I would argue that nobody has really given Soniqs a good challenge on their defenses. So far, Soniqs, when they're playing defensively, they look nigh unbeatable without a whole lot of chances for upsets. But if anybody's gonna break this rock iron solid defense, then it's gonna be TSM.
Yeah. So talking about last week, Jacob, feel free to join me, man. TSM and Space Station Gaming was a matchup that turned out to be extremely weird. I mean, Space Station came out the gate swinging, and the TSM looked like they were going to lose that game, with it going all the way to overtime, man. We saw the likes of players like Chala going 11-8, willing his team to come forth with a win with a .79 kills per round. TSM, week in and week out, would you say that we're starting to see more consistency and progress with them as they get into their championship form?
Yeah, progress, yes. It might have just been a case where it took them a little bit to get going at the very beginning of the season. That's where the Beast Coast win came in and where some of us started to have questions about like how consistent they could be. But since then, it's been all good things all the time. And for TSM to have this kind of momentum now, 3 wins straight, even though one of them was overtime, so they couldn't get the full 3 points off of it. But it came against a Space Station team that was also trying to figure out Chalet kind of at the same time. And yeah, I think part of the reason, not the entire reason, but when a new map comes into the pool and it's something that you kind of know that you want to attack, you want to figure it out probably before anybody else does. The cool part about it is you're obviously going to have your opponents be used to every single other map in the pool at the same time. So the fact that TSM went to the one that teams are already guaranteed to be weakest on, because it simply isn't one that we've seen in the competitive pool for long enough for them to be used to, then it's nice for them to take the initiative, try to get it in like through the ban phase as much as they can, play it and play it well. And against both SSG and against Mirage last week, they did an exceptional job of manipulating that map and really kind of making it their own. I don't really know if that'll be the same case here, but a big reason for their success thus far has been those two big Chalet wins.
Now, coming off of a big win last week, let's change the pace. Let's bring up the Soniqs. They deserve a lot of respect for how much better this team has gotten so far this season.
Absolutely.
Yes, Rexon in front, Kansan, Grixer, Yeti, and we can't forget that boy Super. Now, looking at this roster on paper and looking at TSM on paper, safe to say that from someone else in the scene, they would say, okay, TSM should steamroll this roster. They are an elite roster, and Soniqs, they haven't shown much to us yet. This season, Soniqs have shown a lot. Do you think that they're still going to match up well against the likes of a Titan or a powerhouse inside the NAL?
I mean, I think that Soniqs have got a really good opportunity to step up and really upset TSM. We saw, obviously, Beast Coast do it earlier on in the season. Soniqs, they're a team that have surprised a lot of people. The way that they've been playing has been pretty insane. You compare it to Oldie United, of course, with the 4 players being retained from last season, and it has been a bit of a different pace in my mind. Rexon's really stepped down a little bit in terms of, like, how he's been, impacting this team. It felt like last year on United, Rexon was the big player on United, right? And now he's definitely taken a step back. He and Grixer were sort of even-ish on kills last year. Now Grixer has largely overtaken him. Grixer seems like the powerhouse behind this team. And even on entry, which was Rexon's key point, he went plus 19 on entry last year. Plus 19! That's an insane statistic. Nobody got close to that. This year it's Kansan who's being the main entry player in terms of the statistics for Soniqs. He's 8-1 right now. Rexon can't really hold a candle to that stat line. So in many ways, Rexon taking a back seat has seemingly boosted this lineup. The players that are formerly of United are playing so much better, both individually and as a unit. It's been awesome to see.
All right, now, there's the #1 player overall, and you touched upon it on the pre-show. And by the way, to all the viewers out there, make sure you tune in for the pre-show next time. It's really good. Jacob, Grixer is so damn good, man.
He is really good, and I want to keep on hyping him up for as long as possible just because he does retain the #1 overall rated spot in the North American League. There's 5 players. It's Geo at 5th, Eclipse in 4th, Hot and Cold in 3rd, Achieved in 2nd, and Grixer in 1st. So not only is this where we get to see Grixer, who has 51 kills so far, the most of anyone in the North American League, not only are we getting to see him play today, but he's playing against 2 other players who are also in the top 5 with Geo and Achieved on the opposite side of the stage today. I like the matchup, but also am curious to see if TSM can shut him down, because I don't want to hinge the entire success of a team on one player, but so far, when you have the #1 rated overall player in the North American League, you're going up against a powerhouse like TSM. The key for TSM might just be to shut Grixer down. He's playing a lot of Zofia, he's playing a lot of Aruni, so he's very frag heavy and he's flexible on where he might be on the map. So if you're able to take him out of commission, that might be TSM's key to success. If not, then have fun watching Grixer run roughshod over your entire squad and smack talk you from the other end of the stage, because it's about to get really gritty.
You know what? As a matter of fact, to further prove your point, let's take a step back. Let's take a step back to last week when we had a super weekend. The Soniqs played Oxygen. This team has looked so well-rounded with an overtime win of 8-7, and it being on Oregon. You're looking at the stat sheet, and Soniqs went what, 3-4 when it came to attack, 5-3 when it came to defense. This team has been popping off like crazy. And Jesse, the thing is, it's not about just shutting Grixer down. Yes, he boasts a 1.2 KPR in the last series, right? But the thing is, behind him, you still have a 12-7 Kansan. Behind him, you still have Yeti. And one day, Rexon is going to pop out and own the entire lobby, and he's not going to be at the bottom anymore at 8-11. This team has proven that with the right structure and the right mindset, especially behind Joe Bro, this team they're looking like the real deal so far. It's weird to say, man. Soniqs are looking great.
It is. I don't know what's going on with these players because, again, as you mentioned, Rexon sort of stepping down compared to he was the star player of United last year. Now everybody else on this team, Kansan, Yeti, and Rexon, of course, and Grixer, of course, being the three that have stepped up. And I don't know what they're cooking down there in Harrisburg. Maybe it's Super and Jobra working on some sort of like chemical syrup that was improving these players' skill. I don't know what they're doing to them. I don't know that it's legal. But these players are playing out of their minds, and yeah, it's really awesome to see.
All right, so the maps should be coming in soon. But Jesse, when you look at the matchups of these teams, what is going to be the biggest glaring weakness that the other team is going to have to go over? So from one end, Jacob brings up a point about Grixer being a standout player week in and week out, right? You look at TSM, what do? You shut down Chala, Bolo, Merc? What's the deal when you go against TSM? Because even if you kill the entry fraggers and the roamers, you have a hard breacher that is destined to clutch out a round.
Yeah, I mean, for TSM, we've seen them lose one game. It was the opening game of the season. That means they're on a 3-game winning streak right now. And I think what Beast Coast were able to do that no other team has really, found success on against TSM is they just surprised TSM with all-out aggression. I mean, they were in there fast, time after time after time. You're in TSM's face, and maybe you don't even have a drone in front of you, but you're in their face like 30 seconds into the round. They don't know what's hitting them. And so I'd like to see another team try to utilize that strategy. I don't know if Soniqs are really the squad that are going to do that. I think Soniqs are probably going to, be droning and taking their time with these clears and all that. But we'll see. I mean, if Soniqs don't feel confident in their attacks, and they probably shouldn't because their attacks have been really bad this year so far, then maybe they'll try something crazy like that and really get aggressive and try to sort of take the rug out from under TSM with some aggressive play.
Yeah, so you know what time it is, right?
Oh, is it time for the maps,
It's time
Billy?
for the maps, baby. Lay it all out on us.
Okay, so these teams actually have pretty even map pool. There's only one map that I think leans really heavily in one way, and I think it's probably Consulates. Not one of the opening bands, though. Clubhouse Cafe, there's Coastline. I think Consulate's more of a TSM map, so it would be a Soniqs, and they're actually going to keep it around for a while. It's going to make it to the final, too. Do they play on Consulate? No, sir. Soniqs eventually taking it out of the pool, knowing they had the last ban, and they'll end up on Oregon. So Soniqs, this is, standard. They play here a lot. Somewhat even results, but this year it's looked pretty good for them. Their record is 1-1. But for TSM, this is a throwback. Back in stage 1, this was their best map. They've hardly ever played it since. Lost it to Dark Zero at the stage 1 major. That was their first loss. They were like 4-0 on this map. Since that loss, a historic loss to Dark Zero at the stage 1 major, they have barely touched it. So this is a clear sign that TSM are taking this game seriously, and they're bringing it all out for the Soniqs.
All right, so prediction time, going to Oregon. Caliber Jacob, you rocking with TSM, or you rocking with the new team that's on the up and up?
I don't know. I think the fact that the Soniqs have already gone back to this map twice so far in this stage is a little bit perplexing about why you'd go to it against TSM. I do think TSM probably has demonstrated a lot of that consistency, but the Soniqs have been really explosive, and they managed to knock off Oxygen last week 8-7 max point overtime. So I'm probably going to end up going with them in this case. I think TSM has a lot of things going right for them at the moment, especially with that duo that I talked about from the beginning. But there's just something about going with a team that's on a roll that seems like they're steamrolling through everybody that they play, with a lot of things also in their pocket working out pretty well. I hate to pick against TSM. I genuinely think that they'll probably stick within that top 3, but we have a 3-way tie for first right now, and one of the teams that they're tied with is the team that I'm picking to win this game. So let's see if SQ can pull it out of the hat.
All right, so Soniqs for Caliber Jacob. Jesse, you laugh it. Did Jacob lose his mind finally on this desk, man? Is it going to be TSM all the way or what?
There's a 3-way tie for first in the NAL, but who there's a not 3-way tie for? Our predictions. That's right. I've taken the lead, and I'm going to extend that pick on the TSM. Thank you very much. And I'm excited. I think no doubt this is a game that goes to OT, and I looked at the overtime records. Both teams have played overtime once. It was their most recent game. Both teams won in overtime, so there's not a huge advantage there one way or another. But man, TSM just going back to Oregon excites me. I remember how this team used to play Oregon, and it was unlike any other squad. They were the original kings of this map, and they haven't been back in a long time. They must have something under their sleeve. They must be preparing something for this big game. Oh, I'm excited to see what they can do, Valley.
All right, so Jesse, you leading predictions, and Jacob, you're falling behind. I think I'm tied with you right now.
Fighting me.
So I'm gonna do something kind of unorthodox. Jasmine, producer, I know I just heard you in my ear. Who do you think is gonna win this game?
Wait, we're asking the producer who we think is gonna win this game?
I'm asking production. Yes, you. She thinks Soniqs is gonna win it, and why? Is there a player that you think is gonna do well?
What are you
This is
doing
production,
right now?
by the way. Because
What are
Rex
you
is...
doing?
Grixer. They like what Grixer's been doing, so production thinks that Grixer is going to pop off again and get the win, so... That's my prediction.
You know when you have a problem with me saying things that are kind of like I'm chickening out, or it's like lame, or I'm not really putting my heart into it? You just went and asked our producer who you think is gonna win. Are you kidding me?
Jacob, how about this? You should take offense to this for the simple fact that you and I are actually tied. And
we are tied. And now I have to stick with you. Oh my gosh.
Belly, this feels like a cop-out. You can just blame the producer now if you're wrong. You can just blame somebody else.
Belly and I might be working with the same prediction right now, but I do not stand with you on this one.
You know what?
Different reasons for doing it, and it is wrong. You are just
I'm going to be
wrong,
honest.
sir.
Okay, real talk. We're getting the lobby ready, by the way, for the viewers out there. I believe in Soniqs. You know why I believe in Soniqs? Because we take a look at the mindset that Joe Bro has for this team along with Super. Last season, first stage, they were scary. This was a really good team that actually almost beat Dark Zero in that qualifier to make it to that major. We seem to forget the possibility of a rising team. And with that being said, it is impossible for me to ignore the upswing of just talent that's rising on this roster. I think Soniqs can cause an upset if they bring that fast and crazy gameplay to throw TSM off. But also at the same time, I think Soniqs, if they bring in the ideology to continue to trade to get their wins against TSM and challenge those 50-50s with teammates by them, they can have a good chance at doing this. We know what Merc does. Excuse me, we know what Bolo does. But Jacob, what do you think is going to be the most exciting matchup or point about this matchup right here?
I mean, it does go back to what I mentioned from before. The fact that it's Grixer against Achieved and Geo within that top 5 rating via CGG. To me, I just like it because on paper matchups excite me a lot. If it's a game where you know both teams are tied for first, they have superstar players on both rosters, it's just going to be, you know, a really bloody clash, for lack of a better term. And I'm excited to see who comes out on top. Is it both players on TSM who have both been doing really good? Or is it Grixer getting Yeti behind him, getting Kansan behind him, getting Rexen, the guys we know who can frag? It's the best fraggers in North America on TSM against a red-hot Susquehanna Soniqs team, and that's the only thing you need to know about this matchup.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the players are finally ready in the lobby, so this is going to be a true test to see if the Susquehanna Soniqs are the real deal, if they are who we think they are. But it's all going to be in this best of one against TSM. So, Blue and Stokes, the card again, bros. Take it away.
Thank you very much, Veli, and welcome back once again, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting ready to jump into our second match of the day. We just can't seem to avoid the Soniqs between the two of us here, so Super's gonna have to deal with us once again as we get ready to jump into another cast here. Stokes, obviously TSM has been rebounding, and they've been looking promising, but my question, I think your question going into this matchup as well, is it promising enough to win out against the Soniqs, who have rebounded as well with a great win last week versus OXG?
That is going to be my big question as well, John. So thank you for pointing that out. But an even bigger one, and one that we're going to be figuring out by the end of this, is who is going to have a claim to first place in between TSM or Soniqs. Well, at least second amongst these two. We're currently in a three-way tie between DZ, TSM, and the Soniqs for first place inside of the NAL. So this is going to be our biggest match here inside of Playday 5, and I'm so ready to get into this.
As the analysts were talking about, a lot of highlight players stepping up to the plate in last week's matchup. Grixer, most notably, like 18-9 against OXG. On top of the fact that every single player on the roster for the Soniqs, except Grixer, ironically enough, was positive in their entry statistics when it came to the first fights they were taking on the inside of the round. So everybody generally having good consistency when it comes to their capability to take fights off of last week's game, and Grixer as well showing that capability to frag out. But we've got our community poll as usual, folks. We would like to know between you guys. Obviously, we know Bolo doesn't lose any polls, so this one's a bit of a thrown question already, but is he going to be able to beat Grixer in the server? Let us know with a poll in the chat between Bolo and Grixer. I think I know which way this one's going to go. Stokes, any thoughts from you?
Listen, if it was my money, you already know where I'm going. It's got to go with Bolo, man. Listen, I'm not a betting man, but if it comes down to it, you got to go with the guy that's just literally undefeated. You can't beat him when it comes down to Twitter polls.
Absolutely the case. So Bolo probably going to end up coming out on top of that. We'll see if Grixer's fans can push the bar in one direction or the other, as he's been bringing a pretty impressive performance in the previous weeks. Also going to have to contend with not just Bolo, though, but some other very dangerous elements of the TSM roster that are going to be looking to fire off on all cylinders cylinders, especially on a map like Oregon. And this is the other point from the analysis desk, is that we haven't seen TSM play on this map in such a long time. So that has to mean that for the folks over on the Soniqs, they're only relying off of what they may have played against them in scrims on this map, and that's not really anything you can reliably take from time to time, just because the things that your opponents are using in scrims may not be things they're going to use in an actual match. So this could end up being a bit of a tough one for the Soniqs if TSM is going to bring a new style to the table, given it's been so long since they played this map.
And that's exactly why this matchup is so tantalizing in between the two, is because TSM hasn't played Oregon in forever. The VOD on them is extremely old, whereas the Soniqs are extremely recent. I actually just went back and watched this one last night, and it seemed like there's some sense of consistency inside of Soniqs lineups here. So TSM more than likely going to have a solid read on what Soniqs will be attempting to do here to start us off. We're just around the corner, folks, from this beginning, but just to remind you guys, for this matchup, this is the red hot Soniqs we've been seeing dominate throughout all of the NAL this year, up against TSM with a rough start up against Beast Coast, losing that one 7-3. They bounced back to be the most consistent squad that we see inside of ratings so far this season. Very exciting stuff on the docket for us today. I'm just waiting. I'm just waiting at this point. I'm so excited to get into this.
We're waiting for one more player to hop into the server real quick, and then we should be good to get started. But it's a similar story here at the beginning of 2021 for the Soniqs. Super almost having a bit of deja vu here in the past couple of months, because for those who recall Stage 1 back in the 2020 season, Soniqs had some pretty promising results as well, especially after they were able to fully import their European players into the roster and able to actually put them onto the server, not having to use, I believe it was J9O and NJR as their fill-ins back then. But otherwise, Soniqs were bringing some great results to the table back then as well, in contention in at least one of the segments that I was a part of. I remember we were talking about the Soniqs being a potential top 4 team, and now a year later, well, they are, at least for the time being, in the top 4 and quite high on it as well, looking to push themselves ever further. This is another great opportunity for Super to really make a legacy for the Soniqs, and he's not going to want to waste that after coming so close last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And folks, we are right around the bend once again from getting this thing going. We're just waiting on the readies from everyone, and then we'll be hopping into Oregon amongst these two. Now, talking about the Soniqs on this map and what we've been seeing and what we might be possibly seeing in this next matchup, we got to throw it back to what we saw previously up against Oxygen. And we're actually going to be starting the map right now as well. But just to finish the thought out for you guys, we actually saw a rebound from the Soniqs. They were actually just about to lose the match up against Oxygen, but we're able to force it to overtime, and not even just get it to overtime, but actually win in overtime 8-6 up against them, and they're here to try and do it once again. It's TSM versus Soniqs here on Oregon for our second match of the day.
TSM has the 2 outer bands, Soniqs has the central bands on that little UI in the middle there, so Nomad's going to get knocked out. Interestingly enough, we've been seeing Nomad bans pretty often, although not so much on this map. Considering that it's the Soniqs, though, and they use Nomad pretty liberally on all of their maps, that's a pretty good choice and a pretty targeted ban there coming out from TSM.
Yeah, absolutely. Nomad is a solid operator for practically every single team. I mean, we've seen Chala get a lot of runs with this as well, just because of how solid her kit is overall. Thatcher going to be our other offensive ban, but that one was to be expected in the grand scheme of things. Down to the Mira ban here for Soniqs, as they'll take that away from TSM on defense.
Nomad specifically being picked up by Super quite often there, so that's gonna have to shift him onto another consistent pick.
Actually, funny enough, it's actually all into Kansas.
Oh, did they?
Now.
Oh, did
He's
they
mostly
trade
been
it?
playing
Okay, so that was
Habana.
last season then. I remember for Super, so my bad. But yeah, either way, that's gonna force Kansan or whoever's on that role more likely onto their second choice. Whether that's gonna be a Jackal, Lion, or something else, we will see in a moment here when these players get themselves into the pick phase, which, hey, it's time for that right now. Let's take a peek. And it's the Soniqs on attack, so we can get an immediate analysis as to how they're going to work their way around this here. First round, not going to pay too much mind for it. In fact, we're not going to see any counter roam operators coming in to the fold here for their first pick, as it's going to be a lot of aggression between Ash and Zofia, even the Buck there as well. But there we go. There's the 6th pick we were expecting to see, as they're going to bring a Lion into the fold there on Kansan.
Yeah, the Buck Lion, either or, a new adaptation here for the Soniqs lineup that we haven't seen prior inside of their Oregon. But this is exactly what we expect out of this team. They've been going back to this map for 3 weeks in a row now, and things aren't going to go well for you if you continue to use the exact same strat. So they'll have to try and change things up, try and throw a curveball every once in a while at TSM and just see if it can possibly stick. As for TSM, though, they're going to be doing exactly what we expected with a basement setup. They'll be bringing Aruni as well, and more than likely setting up what we called last week the laser cube. So we'll see if they try and lock down the hatches and the rest of the doors. I'm sure that one won't stick name-wise, but perfectly fine.
Hatch one as well now too there, which I'm sure if we were seeing other teams do that. From what I remember, we were seeing a lot of them go on the side door, but the hatch is actually going to be.
They use all three actually.
Okay.
They use them on the door and the hatch. Yeah.
For some reason, but that would make sense considering, as Stokes said, it is the laser cube these teams are setting up for a lot of emphasis on those Sarai gates going towards that E-drop specifically, and at least one of them looked like they get chucked down onto the laundry connecting hallway as well there at the bottom of the staircase. So third one going to be thrown out there, and that will make up the defensive matrix here for TSM as we're going to work our way deep into the first round and to see how Soniqs look to take that early control for themselves, as thankfully they don't have a whole lot to deal with when it comes to the aggressive roam game for TSM. You do have Achieve taking up that position on the back stairs, but aside from that, I don't think we have a whole lot out and about right now for our defenders. Not even over towards the freezer side, where we typically get a lot more pointed aggression towards the opening assault.
Yeah, especially from the Soniqs, we saw them going for these clears in their last match over towards Freezer every once in a while, but we also saw them go for some meeting stuff as well. So this team can definitely split either way. It just depends on the info that they're obviously going to get and how that will influence them. For TSM, though, this downstairs setup, although looking quite similar in lineup, is definitely not similar in setup. They actually have the single panel for stock shot through with some angles onto Big Tower, so that could come into the fold later on to assist with a possible Big Tower Soniqs take. So we'll have to see if they can possibly deal with that lineup. It's just a lot more crossfires here available to TSM, especially deep inside of the stock area. And they're going to continue to hold on to this pillars area as well, as you would assume. We're reaching the halfway mark now here for the Soniqs as they'll begin work on the hatch inside of meeting.
And he will do some quick work here to open that up, as Stokes had been mentioning, and it won't be too much of a problem for the Maverick here. Geo, in the meanwhile, as we switch over to his POV, is still holding out against the back stair swing, and thankfully that's being held quite successfully for the time being, although they'll have to be careful. Rexon in position there, going to use one of his breaching charges to deal with the utility centered around the pillar and more than likely able to take care of it. You should also account for the fact that we've had none of the EE1D charges used, so Kansas is going to have the capability to gather a lot of intel against TSM, especially if other utility from the Soniqs is going to force TSM members out of position in the middle of that scan.
This is actually a possible issue here for the Soniqs without TSM have this box set up. They actually have multiple panels soft looking into here, one actually from construction, and since TSM have presence there, Soniqs aren't going to be able to drop successfully without taking either quite a few bodies down or at least quite a bit of damage. EE1D out, and that's actually going to be the first one here from Cans, and it's in the last seconds as well. Only 30 seconds remain for the Soniqs to actually make this push happen, so it's going to be a desperate attempt here at the dying moments, and desperate it will be as TSM takes down the first member. It's Rexon from Merc, and it's a sea of blue as the frags start to pop off, but the Soniqs can't find a singular foothold. They're being stopped at the door, and even the toxic smoke now holding them back. Kansan tries to force his way into construction. That's dealt with as well as Super, the last remaining member here for the Soniqs, just going to play his life instead, and that's going to be, well, not anymore, a makeshift perfect round, but Super actually ends up killing Bolo in the end. TSM, round one after a very solid defense.
Yeah, up until that last frag goes in, only 30 damage just about in total done by anyone on the Soniqs on the inside of that round. So definitely not the start they would have liked to have. And obviously Super in the 1vx, not really much that he can do there, so just saves his own life to play that out for stats. Either way, though, that's going to be a very decisive round one going into the favor of TSM. Interesting setup, especially with the open nature of a lot of the walls. Not exactly the way we've been seeing quite a few of our other teams play it, but it played out beautifully for TSM. Soniqs just couldn't find a clean way to work their way down into the actual basement there, and every single attempt they made to push forward was countered by utility, and then a swift shutdown from one of the guns on our blue team here. TSM, a very promising start. We're going to see if they can continue that on the other sites as well. That basement side will get locked down, and they'll shift up the kids for their second choice.
Yeah, inside of that last round, Soniqs are able to get control of meeting, get the meeting hatch open, as well as security and freezer. And what they do with that map control is they put Super inside of freezer, then stack most of the squad on an execute for E-box as well as big tower stairs. Well, the main issue for Soniqs in doing that is the fact that they didn't have a player in construction to assist with what TSM had going on there. In fact, they tried to ignore the situation altogether until the last second, where the smokes were having too much much effect on the situation. They can't try and force their way into the building because they never really truly tried to get rid of that positioning inside of elbow from TSM. So it was just simply too little too late. TSM had all the utility at their disposal as well as the positioning around construction and pillar, and it was just extremely difficult for them to try and work in because of that. So hopefully we can see them find some other avenues to put some pressure onto this TSM squad inside of round 2.
Soniqs working their way out from the front doors relatively quickly here as they're going to be moving in to take that control away. Super will also drone his way up, more than likely spotting out at least part of the setup for Geo there in Arsenal, giving the info over to his teammates. His second drone already on the move as well. What's up?
I really like this setup and what they got going on here. This is very interesting. So ADS in the corner for the window, just in case any nades come in. This deployable shield is more than likely the most interesting part about this. I want to see how they'll utilize that. They do have a soft wall there, so they could use this in some interesting ways, but that's actually not the coolest thing going on right now. In fact, Soniqs have actually gotten a lead off pick for the very first time today on Org, and onto Achieved down low, and that's going to be a big pickup as Achieved has actually been the #1 player for TSM so far throughout the season.
Mid-round setup will follow that loss of a player. Chala will now reinforce the kid's hatch as well as giving him some shotgun holes, so he still has capability to play down below should the Soniqs push to the inside of the kitchen want to play the bottom-up angle. Grixer will take T3. Not going to be much in the roaming department there for TSM, so that goes pretty much to free over. And man, this is... I mean, TSM bringing us a
unique setup.
Yeah, TSM bringing us a whole lot of new stuff. I mean, once again, emphasizing the fact they have not played this map in months. So like I said before we went live, there was a good possibility they were going to come into this map with a whole new, lease on life for how to play this. And they certainly have lived up to that expectation so far here with two completely different setups from what we're normally used to.
Yeah, Pojo has to be extremely happy with how this has been going so far because they've been able to not only delay the Soniqs, but continue to win these rounds simply because of how these setups look, seemingly. Chala with just a better angle up against Rex, and that's not something that they teach in Academy, and that's why he's going to lose out that round. Very unfortunate for him on that frag, but now we're equalized here amongst the two. Yeti making forward progress inside of Attic. Might have a possible frag here if Bolo chooses to step up to the plate, but highly doubt it, as he realizes the pressure more than likely mounting inside of here. So they're going to try and force these Sonic members into a worse gunfight if they actually hop down into the lower part of Attic here. That'll be a big sound cue and more than likely a swing from these TSM members. Now, down to 40 seconds remaining as the Sonics continue to find a way to work their way onto site. As of right now, it's looking like a Dorms execute for Super, as he's actually going to be repelled with the case. Kansan overwatching Big Window as Toxic Babes start to pop in. Yeti going to take quite a bit of damage. Grixer still up as well, and he could have possibly something to say about this engagement. Bolo gets one. Can he get the second? He can! Even through the concussion, Super able to clean up Chala inside of Dorms, and he'll actually take space as well. He'll have to try and go for the plant here, but it's not exactly safe for the time being. The EE1D there, but Gio's got the angle, Merc's got the hop in, and TSM have round 2.
All those plays so unfortunate for the Sonics members. Generally speaking, they're actually able to put themselves on the right foot forward, getting full Kids control. Super gets 2 entries to get him to the inside of Kids, but it's all for naught because of the play inside of Attic from Bolo right there. The great hold while in the middle of concussion from what we could tell as well, to pick up a double there and kill the pinch that was going to allow Sonics to get the room they needed for a plant. Meaning TSM get themselves yet another round, going up 2-0.
That is actually such a cool setup there from TSM, and I really wish we could go back and watch a little bit more, but I just like to give like the initial thoughts about it, and especially with the reinforcements moving away from Attic. It seems as though TSM are setting up for Armory as well as, Trophy to try and limit Sonic's potential inside of the master area and force them into a small tower like Big Window take into Attic. And that's where that Attic play comes in, because Polo plays that passively instead of what we usually see inside of that room, which is you more than likely set up an SAS operator, someone with a rifle for longer distance, like Wilmai with MP5K and a 1.5 times scope or something like that, and you simply play Attic until you die, or they force you off of that room. Instead, what TSM do is they play for the soft wall. When they start hearing that utility go down, they kind of pepper the wall, see if they can get some frags, not only dealing damage, but also possibly taking utility away from the Sonics, and on top of that, delaying time. Once they actually get inside, Bolo's able to play that from kind of the plat area you see Bolo running through right now. Because of the setup TSM has around the trophy and armory area, you're not going to have Sonics members there. So Bolo's safe to play in that space, whereas prior, he would not, because Sonics would have players around that space. So really solid setup from TSM and a great understanding of how they're going to actually funnel Sonics in and what they want them to actually do on the offense to make their defensive setup successful.
So third point on the rotation triangle coming up here for TSM as they try to vie for control of the kitchen and meeting defense, from what I can tell here on the silhouettes right now. Gio, of course, throwing some early aggression out here against the Soniqs, but we're going to see him fall back from that position relatively quickly due to the noise he made. So we'll see if that draws the ire of anyone on the Sonic side of things. Not looking likely at the current point in time. Yeti just carving his way through small tower and nearly finding an engagement, although I'm unsure he's going to be fully aware of it as he works his way forward here. That's the team remaining stalwart in their current positions. Chala ready to swing against Yeti if the opportunity presents itself, and Yeti's not going to be the only one there should we go to that duel here. You've got at least one player supporting him, likely more than that as well. 8 onto white stairs to keep the pressure back from upstairs on the secondary hold there. It works out to allow Yeti to once again cross the second teammate in position here as well. Now Kansan be taken up the mantle right next to Yeti to hold this against any sort of white stairs pressure that could come from Merc or any other member of TSM. And that pressure we're about to see boil out. Merc knew a player swung past him if he caught that sliver, so he's going to be ready for this if Yeti continues to go around the corner.
Yeti trying to get this clear handled for the Soniqs. They're going to need a lot here to handle this top hold, and it all starts with these long angles. Yeah, you can see the supportive angles here from TSM and how they're playing this space. Merc with this long angle to support Geo for trophy, and a lot of ADSs to stop all of this utility usage here. This is just such a solid setup right now for them. The Soniqs are trying to deal with him anyway or how. Merc, although not knowing, unbeknownst to him, able to save his own life by moving. Looks like Yeti pushing upstairs as well. The pin finally comes through. No one holding his white stairs. Yeti's got to make the moves now. This is where he can possibly pick up quite a few frags, but he's not going to clear out the rest of dorms. Yeti, there's a guy in here with you. Bolo's not even aware of the situation. He's just going to die. There's too much noise going on. He can't hear a single footstep. So our star pupil of Rainbow Six goes down with no audio cue. 40 seconds remain, and the Soniqs are looking solid.
Yeah, he probably laughed into himself as he picks up that frags. I know I was. Either way, puts us into an advantageous position here for the Soniqs, clearing out, for the most part, that upstairs hold. Still a few players, even in the basement, rotating up their freezer stairs right now. It's going to be achieved playing just at the doorway to that staircase, while the two others hold deeper on the inside of the kitchen. Chal is the point man right now to pick up the big frags against the Soniqs as they try to take control. First contact is missed. He's got the right to reinitiate, and there you go. The great frag against Super to take him down, but he's got to be careful as the sky's falling above him. Achieve with another pickup here as he swings out from his position at freezer stairs. Kansas going to be able to trade out onto Chala, giving him access to the site, and Yeti will join him from upstairs. They've got their plant route. Now they need to stick it as Yeti finds a big kill. Might solidify things. Achieve with the runaround, though. He's going to get the double response, and TSM take the round instead.
TSM playing it down to the wire there, and oh man, what a desperate round from them. Soniqs almost having it, but just not having the control like they wanted inside of that 2v2. Only able to cover so many angles with Yeti's positioning, and that's exactly why TSM will be able to abuse that. But that round overall, quite the solid start there for the Soniqs, as they have a lot of control upstairs, able to translate that into an attempted plant, but really the story being Yeti and his white play, not only able to get the immediate frag onto Merc, but also quite a weird one inside of dorms, taking down Bolo when neither of them knew the other was present.
Taking a look here as we are going to get a timeout from the Soniqs. A very much needed one here when you consider how differently TSM has been playing each site. The good news for the Soniqs is they've seen all 3 points on it. They know, generally speaking, how they're going to play these sites on the rerun. Now it's time to use this minute that they have inside of the timeout to discuss how exactly do we get past this, what's the plan. It may not sound like a lot of time, but hopefully it's going to be enough here as the Soniqs have to rebound in a big way. Otherwise, TSM is going to be looking at a massive half here off of their somewhat new take on the Oregon defense.
And this is super difficult for the Soniqs right now, being down 3 rounds, as in their previous matchup up against OXG, they were actually able to get 3 rounds on their offensive side. And not only that, but all of those wins coming from plants as well, which is a really, really big deal. And it tells you that Soniqs' offense on Oregon should be extremely solid. It's just the fact that TSM's defenses are so utterly annoying, if I may say. Like, these setups right now are difficult for the Soniqs to get through because no one truly has been playing these types of setups that I've seen, at least inside of NA or really globally. But my global knowledge right now isn't as strong as it once was, since, we haven't had international competition in what seems like eons. But besides the point from that, TSM now get to reset the site triangle. They're going back downstairs as they'll be playing the basement. It's going to be the exact same setup from before with Geo back on the Aruni.
See those Surya gates work their way down in the usual positions here. More than likely going to be the same exact setup for TSM. Still have soft destruction on all of the walls that we're normally not used to seeing them on here, but for TSM, going to be thriving upon that chaos as they're going to be able to play not from inside of the pillar room, but deeper in the actual site itself. And so far, that's worked out very, very well for them to be able to shut down the backstairs and construction push from the Soniqs. Freezer push as well, though we never really saw a whole lot of action coming from that. And also a little bit more aggression this time, maybe from TSM Achieved. Once more playing on that back stair position, and he's actually up the steps themselves this time. Although that has the potential to change pretty quickly with this drone coming in to figure him out right now.
I don't know how well this is going to go for him, given that he has an Intero charm on. Might want to switch that up to a Kicks one if you want to shoot straight, and just trying to give you some friendly advice, I've played a lot of Siege with Parker, and I can say that none of it was ever really good. I'd much rather have the Kicks charm on. Anyways, besides caster bias, let's get back into this and see what the Soniqs are up to. We did see an attempted spawn peek by TSM, or at least a scare tactic by Achieved as he worked his way up Big Tower, but that is just translated into what we have in front of us right now. The Soniqs with some solid positioning around Big Tower to clear this lower staircase. They'll have to back off Achieved so they can start some work inside of meeting. From what we saw the last time they went for that meeting attack, they were able to not only use that to get some members downstairs towards the actual stairwell, but they also attempted to push in through the meeting hatch. What they didn't have, the singular piece of the puzzle that could have found them success, was some construction pressure. It came a little bit too late. The smokes were too viable for TSM inside of Elbow, and they weren't able to do anything because of it, leaving Soniqs down to Super inside of Freezer. Let's see if they can try and right that ship.
Anyone's getting quick work on the E-hatch here. Open that up and obviously present the opportunity, well, for the start of the opportunity for the Sonics to try and work their way down. With so many of those laser gates in the way, though, it's going to be quite a while before they're able to properly utilize that position for either utility dump or just an outright execution. First, those E1D chargers going to come out. I believe that's the first one anyway. Yeah, it is for the Sonics. So we'll see if any info will present itself. Not going to be much at this point due to TSM's more passive style, but you'll notice from the Sonics here, they're getting ready to go in regardless. They burn out the gate, blocking Laundry, and already Grixer is prepared and committed to start throwing in the utility, dealing with the Banshee on site, and maybe opening up a route for the Freezer push or Laundry push should they decide to commit to these two players by the stairs right now.
And this is what you want to see if you're a Sonics member sitting at home. I know there's a lot of you guys right now supporting this squad, supporting the new EU talents picked up here. And they've been playing so well throughout the season, so why stop now? It's an adjustment for the Sonics, looking for the Laundry Freezer take, but TSM seems good for it. Obviously, utility not going to be as strong on this side as we saw on the other one, but they're still going to have some Surya gates and other important pieces that are actually going to be utilized here. Second EE1D in now, and the smokes everywhere as TSM able to pick up the first big frag. It's on to Grixer. Achieved follows through as well on the upswing, but finally the collapse comes through. Super able to get a frag, but he's also got case control. It's down inside of Freezer hallway. The last one being Kansan inside of Laundry. He's actually able to dip back into Freezer, finds the frag, but the timer, the timer, able to catch them, and TSM with round 4. The Sonics starting to fall apart in the late round.
Once again, that bunker setup playing in well for TSM. The new setup causing issues for the folks on the attack or for the Sonics and making them unable to work their way in, keeping this half flawless so far for TSM. Now beginning their second run around the sites. They've already won the repeat of the basement, although much closer for the Sonics, able to adjust their take direction by pushing in from Laundry as well as Freezer that time. And I've really got a lot closer, but still no dice. And that's the big message right now, is while they are steadily improving, that won't really matter if TSM end up running up for 5 or 6 rounds in this half.
Absolutely. And I think something even on top of the message that they're already sending is just a statement. Currently, right now, Grixer is 0-0-4. This guy's had 0 influence over this round, all except for, or over this game, all except for his utility. That's been it. And Grixer is arguably the #1 player inside of the NAL right now. He's had the hottest start. He's looked the best. He's had the most frags, highest rating, and for him to be silent right now speaks volumes to everybody about what is happening to the Soniqs roster up against TSM. It seems like TSM is back to form. Soniqs need to try and fix things here on this offense. These last 2 rounds mean everything to what can possibly happen for their defenses. Although Oregon is defensive sided, being down 6-0 doesn't seem like the best way to start off.
Certainly not the case. So for the Soniqs, trying to make impact once again. They know they'll have easy access to the attic, assuming it's going to remain unreinforced by TSM on this round, and I believe it is. It takes me a second there to catch up because of the feed we have.
And a rotate.
Feed we have gets a little pixelized sometimes when the camera moves, so it takes us a second to get those finer details. But it is indeed going to be soft on this round as well, and Merc will continue to play into this T3 position. Now, we did do this in the previous round, but he was pretty aggressive with it, tried to take some shots out the window, and that forced him back at like 230. So we'll see if he does the same timing here, as he does have competition coming out against him. And he is not ready for it. Grixer finally getting himself onto the board in booming fashion there by taking out Merc hiding in T3.
Well, that's a way to upgrade from the donut to the breadstick. Very nice stuff there from Grixer. Able to find a very important first frag here, as Merc will actually go down inside a big tower. So that'll give control up and over to them. Soniqs finally utilizing this full EE1D potential, as we started to see them use it more often inside of that last round there, but that was the first time that we saw 2 go off inside of 1 round. Now we're using them early on here. Kansan realizing, hey, I can actually use these throughout and use that last one for our final execute, and that's why Lion is so potent when it comes down to these rounds, is he'll be able to continue to force you into a impromptu game of freeze tag where you're not really allowed to move unless you possibly want spotted. So we'll see if that can possibly bag them any frags going into this last minute and 30.
Super continuing to look for capability to find earlier impact here, but not able to suss anyone out from the TSM roster just as of yet, as they're staying very stable in their defensive position. This includes Geo extended into Arsenal. Now, this never really got tested on the last hole. Geo ended up giving up this position relatively quickly. This time, more likely going to be a bit different, and even worse, I am not entirely sure if the Soniqs are aware. They're going to know now, as Geo has fired out those shots. So they failed to drone it previously. They'll be aware of the fact that he's in here now. More than likely, they were aware of it to begin with and are trying to play around it with their current position on connector. It's very awkward, though. Some proper communication comes out from TSM. They can very easily pinch these positions. But we've got more developing news, too. Over in the attic, Yeti absolutely slam dunks against Chala right there. Says bye-bye to him. So far, an unrestricted round for the Soniqs, not a single point of damage taken by them, and that's going to continue as Rexon gets the kill against Geo, and Arsenal also, oh no, a knife swing from Achieve leads to his death against Yeti, and just like that, it's all on Bolo.
Yeah, indeed. And if there's one thing that Bolo's good for, it's usually a clutch situation, but this is quite the tall task. The Soniqs finally reclaim some ground here in round 5, a flawless round for them off of the back of some very, very good frags. Mostly just waiting for TSM to try and actually fight back. Really good lead off as well, able to find that frag onto Merc, and actually knew what the game plan was this time around. Solid stuff there from the Soniqs. Ends up bagging them round 5.
Dope stuff inside of the early rounds, specifically there, as you said. For the most part, just waiting out the aggression from TSM. They knew they were going to be feeling themselves at a 4-0 lead over their opponents. So they wanted to try and abuse that a little bit. It worked out beautifully, catching quite a few members of TSM playing aggressively, able to capitalize upon that to at least bring it down to the 5v3. TSM continued to try to make up the difference with their own aggressive swings, as once we got down to 2 to 3 players left, there was actually quite a few off-site players that were the ones still alive. So they had to try to either rotate back or throw the round back into their favor in some way, and the fights just couldn't be won. The Soniqs take all of them, and they have themselves their own flawless round that actually ends up being flawless that time. And to their credit, similarly to TSM's initial round, 0 damage done to any of the Soniqs members there.
Yeah, we'll see if they can do it again as TSM actually going back to dorm. So feeling some type of way about this, and we'll see if they can possibly correct some mistakes that we saw inside of that last round. The early aggression there from TSM not working out extremely well. Seems as though they're actually going to back Merc off of Big Tower. They've realized that Soniqs know that that is the play currently for them, especially when that rotates there. But we could possibly still see Merc attempt to do this. Only issue is now, though, is that the Soniqs actually have a drone up here for Yeti. So more than likely not going to do so. And in fact, they're actually going to leave these reinforcements to the last second just to see if the Soniqs dedicate in the same way. But obviously, since Yeti has the early intel with that drone, more than likely just going to go back to a default tag. Ooh, are they going to try and deal with Armory here?
It's like it. The drone's in position. Kansan has the swing angle ready to go. They've confirmed that Geo's playing in the same spot once again. But keep in mind, this is not the easiest position to work their way past. They've got to deal with the utility first. Geo already been forced out. They still think he's in the corner, though. So Geo has the lineup for Kansan there. An unfortunate lapse in the info game. Geo will also just punch real quick out the... just punch out the hatch to make sure nobody tries to work their way in through the garage to trade him. Sorry, that punch always catches me off guard. Not used to seeing that in the midst of the round.
Oh, well, that's very unfortunate here, especially since it is the Lion. That's going to put a large fold that Soniqs are going to have to try and iron out here into the Soniqs game plan. This Kansan, very important to that last push and how they were able to limit TSM. But now... down to this 5 versus 4, swinging back and forth, trying to equalize onto Geo, but he's just better in the situation. They had the intel, but Rexon can't win the 1 versus 1. Geo starting to gun out, almost does it again, but just a tick of damage onto Grixer from that Roni. It's not going to be enough when it comes down to it. A minute and a half remain for the last 3 remaining Soniqs members is once again put into a difficult spot.
Rexon trying to play a little bit of whack-a-mole there with his opponent. The problem is he didn't realize he was the mole in that scenario, so he ends up getting whacked and knocked out. 4 versus 3 is the way that the score will devolve down towards. We continue to run down the timer also at slightly over a minute remaining for the Soniqs to compress their attack. They've got Grixer, Super, and Yeti left in the fight here. Chala trying to restrict some of this pressure from Attic in the meanwhile and being successful upon that. Members of the Soniqs need to be very careful about the way they approach this. They do not want to go for blind executes if they can avoid it, just because of the fact they're down a player. That does not serve them mathematically. If they lose that fight, they're down even further. Now both the remaining players need to get 2 kills. They have to try and find one for free to start this execute, but obviously with them being on the attack, that's not the easiest thing in the world. Now Yeti's gotten himself a pretty forward position, and I'm unsure if TSM are actually aware of this yet. Chala seems to be up to the task, though, as he switched over to the Shoddy, playing the very close angle and preparing for the swing from Yeti. Here it comes, and Yeti second guesses himself, had the right idea, but Chala's going to end up winning it out. Merc as well, shutting it down with the 2 final frags as TSM take round number 6 and their 5th round overall.
Yeah, just way too strong there from TSM. Able to pick up all of those rounds. Very, very solid stuff. But that means we're going to be switching sides now, folks. Soniqs onto defense, and this is where the rubber hits the road. The Soniqs' defenses is where they've been winning a lot of these rounds here on Oregon. Last week, obviously, we saw it coming from a handful of offensive plants as well, but it's not going to be done in the same fashion. They have to try and run things back here with these defenses, and it all starts downstairs. This looks to be an extremely similar lineup to what they have been running for this basement setup, all except for, I believe, Yeti on the Maestro.
Let's see, a buck 6 picked in here for TSM, also on the attacking side of things, not needing the anti-roam that would normally come from the Jackal, and I mean, that makes sense. We're playing on basement, generally speaking, roams at a minimum, so you're not really going to need that Jackal necessarily, unless you're specifically trying to hunt someone down. But we'll see what the Soniqs will present us in terms of a strategy. This is looking like the more default sort of setup that we've been seeing a lot of our teams run here inside of the NAL, especially on the operator side of things, too.
Well, looking across the field a little bit more here, at least for the Soniqs and what they'll be doing, seems to be kind of similar game plans here. We are going to have the Soniqs breaking up that single panel as well, just for some more angles into pillar, as well as 2 big tower stairs. The single panel popped inside of E-Box as well into construction, so they can actually play this in pretty similar fashion to how we saw TSM handle things. But we'll have to see how TSM wants to go about this offensive attack here. At least they're going to have a couple of different ideas as to what we saw from the Soniqs for this, mostly Yana on Bolo.
Very quiet in the early round yet again, as you would generally expect with a bunkered basement defense. The Soniqs not trying to vie for any sort of early frag, save for Rexon on the back stairs, the same exact task that Achieved was trying to pull off when he was on the defense just a few rounds back. But now he's on the attack and on the buck, going for the upstairs clear first. They're going to find that pretty much empty, so TSM will get free reign to that position, as well as the large majority of the first floor too, save for that slight aggression on the back tower position, which you guys can see now is already long gone, with Rexon choosing to play in the default position down here by the construction door instead.
Well, Bolo and the rest of TSM already setting up pretty strongly for this offense, able to get the clear and start working on meeting. Now we have that downtime while they get all of this utility set up and ready to go, get these hatches open, start applying pressure to the Soniqs. We should not see a rotation from anyone downstairs. Should be simply sitting on their hands, waiting for this engagement from TSM. Now for TSM, we'll have to see exactly where they want to try and attempt this. They will have two hard destructors here in the likes of Ace as well as the Maverick, but this could be pick dependent here for TSM. Obviously, with that amount of utility, they can get open all of the hatches as well as still have some influence on multiple walls, so this could possibly crumble in any direction.
Rexon fends off that quick drone assault. In fact, he's a little drone shooting mini game right now here. He's got a couple working his direction, but that'll lower the overall count for TSM. Only the first of their drones to fall, really, though, as they still sit with 7 overall inside of this round. So plenty to utilize there as they chuck a couple down into the position of Yeti and Rexon, trying to figure out exactly where they're playing from. The impact goes out. It actually does some pretty massive damage to Merc there. He's going to go down at sub 25. Someone else will have to take point for the execute here now as we're coming down to the wire. With only 45 seconds remaining.
Rexon still with a solid position here inside of Pillar, and you can see the assists coming from his squad in on these separate angles, especially through that single panel they have for stock. Soniqs great so far in delaying TSM, and there's just so many angles to worry about right now. They're running into the exact same issues that we saw the Soniqs have on their offenses, and now faced with the same problems, they have to try and work their way through them. Already losing Bolo early on here and into the dying moments. The push comes now. Geo in, able to find a frag. Merc works his way in as well. He's been shut down by Grixer, who swings wide, finds one on Pillar, but it's actually Super who fires back, able to take down Achieved. They've locked down Freezer hallway, case control into their hands as well now. This is all down to Chala inside of Freezer. The last-ditch effort here in a 1 versus 3, make it a 1 versus 2, but still a beautiful shot onto Grixer won't amount to much as round 7 goes to the Soniqs.
Round plays out actually incredibly similar to the way that round 1 played out when the sides were flipped there. TSM once more failing to work their way in, specifically in that late round situation, just because of the presence coming specifically on that back staircase there through the soft panel wall. It's so difficult to tell exactly how to counter that off. TSM still able to work their way in ultimately and trade for some control, but just like the second play we saw from Soniqs' attack against that site, ran out of time, couldn't find those remaining players, and obviously no man count to really frag out at that point either, so the Soniqs take a very solid hold on their first defense as well, and we'll shift to the predictable second site of Kids.
Yeah, very predictable, actually, when it comes to into Oregon and everything that we usually see on this map. But it is going to be a different look for them as opposed to what we saw from TSM. Not going to have the Aruni along for the ride, and definitely not going to have any play out towards Armory or even Trophy. Oh, no, no, no. We're actually going back to basics here, or at least basics in our eyes of competitive Siege. We'll have the Goyo for the multiple shields, not only for the Dorm's door, but also for Attic, as well as the ADSs to assist this. So this is what we were talking about earlier on when we were talking about playing this bottom area of Attic either till death or till they force you out of that area. That's what we will see from the Soniqs. For TSM, obviously knowing this now, seeing that the Soniqs are going back to this regular setup for them, we'll have to see how they want to try and handle this. Obviously, it's going to be the exact same lineup that we saw previously. I don't believe that we had Achieved on Buck prior, though, so that'll be a new thing coming in for them, but that'll actually be a very solid choice for them inside of this lineup. It'll give them not only more soft destruction being paired with the Ash, but also the ability to work verticality inside of the kitchen area down low, and that's a very big deal when it comes to this site, because it's actually going to apply pressure to Super inside of Dorms and force him into some possible bad engagements.
Soniqs looking to cap themselves off on this half with a good start here. 2 rounds in a row would put them just a couple rounds away from TSM's overall reach. They inch that much closer to winning here. Soniqs have to try and take control of as many rounds in a row as possible. This is still a rough scoreline to work against as TSM sit just those 2 measly rounds away from being able to win out this map in solid fashion. The rounds continue to go their way. Soniqs having their own solid start on that basement hold. They too are looking to try and leverage some more rounds into their favor. They're going to start this with the downstairs hold on the first floor here. Yeti trying to see if he can find out any of the initial takes from TSM, and he's going to find one and nearly loses his head in the process there. Will turn tail pretty fast and spin in the other direction to head back up white.
And people get so angry about fast peeking and stuff in this game, and you see exactly why people do it. If that guy was out there lingering for even a millisecond longer, he more than likely loses his noggin. So very nice there from TSM, or at least Yeti, excuse me, to actually get himself out of that situation. About halfway through the round now, as TSM's offense as of round 8 is starting to ramp up. Merc with some damage dealt to him from Grixer, pre-fires out the window, but it's actually going to be dealt to him inside of Master instead. So that's possibly a big issue for them, as Merc's usually one of the tips of the spear on forcing their way into the actual site. So we'll see if TSM can possibly get around that. Still have plenty of utility in the grand scheme of things, though. Plenty of frag grenades, stuns, and everything else at their disposal.
Chala trying to vie for control of that attic window in order to work his way in, but look at the setup that's going up against that. Yeti with an immediate angle on the window, and there's a trade set up for this in Rex and 2, watching Yeti's back and being there in the event he fails to win the initial 1v1. Grix are going to take a lot of heat, but it's all going the Soniqs' way there. Both Rexon and Yeti picking up kills, Kansan finding one off the Nitro, also bringing it down to just Bolo and Achieved. TSM's initial vie for control has failed outright. Achieved going to make up a slight difference as he works his way in, but he's still stuck behind a Banshee. Even that first melee attempt not going off. The whiffed flash sends him reeling back to the inside. Doesn't give him any capability to play into this. And after a couple seconds of delay, Grixer and Yeti will find those last couple of frags, netting the round over to the Soniqs.
This is such solid play from the Soniqs right now. We're not seeing them be overly aggressive. They're forcing the offense to make very critical decisions that are actually limiting TSM, especially inside of that round. The cause for delay there being that none of the Soniqs truly gave them anything at all, not even in the utility department. And that's actually where they ended up punishing TSM at the end, because it's such a low time execute. And Soniqs have all the utility at their disposal, like we were talking about before. Granted, TSM did have stuns and everything else, but still having to deal with nitro cells and things along those lines, it's going to become very problematic if you have to try and stick a case in the last 20 seconds. TSM almost had it done. They were going for the plant right inside the trophy door, but the nitro cell ends up catching them off guard, as well as the cutoffs inside of attic, as well as near top white finding frags of their own. So just not able to actually work their way into the site. Just too strong on that defense is the Sonic.
The comeback run continues. Soniqs arguably having as strong as a defense as TSM did with their new flare that they've added into it here today. That is going to take us to the third point on the triangle, and the most common point where we ask, is it indeed going to be as consistent as we just saw from TSM, or do things falter on the weaker site? The Soniqs have chosen to go for the meeting hall hold here, so going to be a little bit... Actually, no, I think TSM played meeting hall as well, so never mind on that one, as most of the contention will be played to fight for kitchen. We'll see, though, TSM choose to attack from the stage and tower side of the map, which is oftentimes the second option that our attacking squads will utilize.
Really liking the setup here from Grixer. This is a big throwback, boys and girls. Triple ADS setup inside of T3. That ADS underneath the window over there might look risque, but it's actually not. You can't actually shoot it. Even if you go upside down, the lips of the windows are actually too thick in order to get an angle on that ADS, so it can actually provide you some issues trying to get that out of its setup. As for the rest of it, though, it's basically just going to be one big utility dump. But as you can see right now for TSM, this doesn't seem to be the clear for them. So Grixer's going to grab his ADSs, immediately hightail it out of T3, goes down to T2, and starts holding this cross for Armory. Able to get some damage onto Merc. Can the G8 possibly do it? Oh, no, he actually ends up getting them. They see him bleeding out as well, so the Soniqs will be all over this. The blood is in the water, and the Soniqs are hungry.
See a couple members there to support Merc, though, so there is a slight possibility he's able to get revived. From what you guys can see on the silhouettes, though, no one really capable of getting to him in the immediate area. Bolo's occupied. He's got other things to worry about right now besides his dead teammate laying on the ground. So they're going to bring in Geo to handle that instead. Merc will be brought back up. Not dead just yet, but certainly going to be limping here at sub 25 after the revive. Achieved also trying to work his way up the white stairs here. He's going to make some noise in the process, and that draws the attention of Yeti, who will be able to swing on the white stairs position, shutting him down.
And this is the thing about the new Soniqs as opposed to the previous Soniqs that we've been seeing. They're just such a dynamic squad now, especially with how they're able to handle map control and bring it back to TSM in this moment. But Super, with a bad move, tries to come out of freezer a little early here, ends up getting cut off from the showers area. So down to the 4v4 right now, but not too big of a deal. Super still got the rest of the squad to try and pick up this one, and they've done a very good job of limiting a lot of this time, as well as downing Merc. So actually in the lead right now.
Chala still inching his way up, trying to look for a way to re-entry after Achieved was down here just a few moments ago. Yeti at the same time, still here, still potentially going to cause problems for Merc or anyone that tries to lurk their way to the inside. Seem to be aware of Yeti's position, though. Bolo with a clean kill, having all of the intel he needs as to Yeti's current spot will knock him out, but still a lot more work to do. They still have to transition downstairs, and they've only got 40 seconds to start their plant. Rexon still hiding out in security. Grixer having the cross from the inside of Meeting if they drop down this hatch as well. Cans with a nitro cell, and it's going to sing as it takes down Merc and evens out the numbers again.
Yeah, if he was breathing funny before, he's not breathing at all now. So 3v3 here in between these two with only 20 seconds remaining. Geo stuck inside of security with multiple angles covering him, especially a man from inside Freezer. He's going to need the assist here as Rexon's going to take a lot of damage, but he can't tag him up enough to seal the deal. Shala now with the plant trying to seal all of this away, but no. Kansan with the quick shots takes down the Overwatch and immediately bags Chala as well through the island. What a heads-up play here, and a hell of a flick. The Soniqs starting to bring it back up against TSM, currently 4-5.
Yeti with a nice little dance there, as, like he said, they're starting to feel themselves here, working their way back into it. They get the perfect run, just like TSM did, and just like the Soniqs did in the last half. TSM going to call for a timeout after that run is completed, as they need to discuss how these reattempts are going to be changed, and more importantly, how are they going to win these 2 out of 3 rounds they need to close out here in order to guarantee the W and avoid OT.
Yeah, for Oregon, where we often see quite a few plants go down, at least in recent history, we haven't seen a single plant happen from either one of these squads so far. They've attempted them, but they have not been able to get them down, and that tells you exactly how this game has been going so far. The defense has just been so dominant when it not only comes to the utility game, but also just pacing. They're controlling how this offense is attempting to move, no matter the side of the coin. The issue right now for TSM, though, is they haven't actually reached round 6 or having 6 rounds. And the big problem with that is they can't guarantee overtime. So the Soniqs, if they continue on this run, this could be a huge issue for TSM, as the Soniqs could stun the world, not only claiming first place as of now, but also knocking TSM down.
We do have a Tachanka pick locked in there for Yeti. We've slowly been seeing him inch his way into a couple of the setups in North America, but it's a bait, as it's going to get 6 picked right back over to the Maestro. I was wondering if it was willing to contest with the utility of the Alda as well as those Evil Eyes, and it seems like I got baited there. So well done, Yeti.
Yeah, that one works out. I mean, we haven't seen too much of the Lord, sadly, since his buff, but maybe one day he'll work into a lineup so well that you can't refuse having
Like a terrible swap, I guess. The Evil Eyes for the 9 Molotovs you can bring in. Not necessarily.
Do you want the actual argument?
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about it.
It's terrible if you're going to compare the two, because the Evil Eyes do so much more than the Mollies do, right? Because not only do you have the lasers, but you also have the fact that you have to blow them up. You have to use a frag grenade or something that is an explosive device. But on top of that, you also have cameras.
Yeah, that's
so
what
like,
I was gonna mention.
you know,
Free intel as well as the actual utility of the Evil Eyes itself and the Alda. Just being a little bit too much to contend against.
That's the icing on the cake. We can just talk about Evil Eyes. He could sit inside the site with no gun and still be a potent operator, but on top of that, he has an LMG. So
I don't know what pros opinions are specifically on Tachanka's gun, like if it's actually a good gun to fight with or not. But I have not had the best results. So.
Okay, so the issue with the LMG, I'm not saying this for the pros, I'm just saying this is my own opinion, everybody. The rate of fire is the biggest issue. It does a hell of a lot of damage.
The same problem as the I feel like, is where the shots are just so far between each other that if you miss one shot, you lose the fight on your spray.
Exactly. Like, that's the biggest issue with it. I mean, it does a crap load of soft destruction, though. And that's something cool that we could see later on down the line if someone can find a viable option for his utility, is if they're going to bring him as, like, kind of a makeshift SAS operator. Because if you really think about it, if you bring him inside the lineup, you don't have to necessarily bring smoke, which is something that we could be seeing down the line. But I'm definitely going to tell you right now, it's not going to be the most influential pick as of right now. So we're more than likely not going to see teams trying to switch him out. And that's not going to be in this lineup either, as Yeti gets off of Tachanka over to Maestro, and Super's still going to be on that Smoke because, well, Smoke's just the best defender in the game. I will hear no other options.
All right, so that ate up a good minute and a half. Thank you, Stokes, for that very good explanation. Buddy. And we worked our way past the phase of the round where not a whole lot was happening there. Just mainly TSM gathering extra info. It's the bunker setup in the basement again from the Soniqs, so no roam game to be seen from them. Just TSM continuing to chuck their drones in and try to establish positioning with them, as well as deal with the utility inside of that box downstairs and electrical, the Surya gates, as well as a whole lot more to try and figure out here before they even attempt to swing down the stairs, as Merc is preparing to do right now.
You know, Super's got to be really happy with how this day has been going so far. Obviously not completed, but definitely happy with how things have been. Bolo currently 4-2-7. This has not been the greatest season for him, as prior to this matchup, he was actually 27-27 inside of the frag department. So even as of the start, and currently negative as of right now. But for the rest of the squad, they're attempting to step up to the plate. Granted, right now there's a lot of 7s here, and usually 7 isn't the luckiest number, so we'll see if somebody can possibly get us off of that frag total for those 3 players. Now down to the last 30 seconds, though. It's the execute for TSM as they begin to break up all of this utility.
Merc, he's ready to go for the drop, and just seconds away from it here. Only 20 seconds left. It's an all-in play. It's a dangerous stack on the inside, too, but it starts out well. Merc and Geo frag out. Merc with a lineup for a second, and he's going to get it. Rexen, the only response here so far, and now just him and Super left in the fight. But with 10 seconds left, they can still put a stop to this round here. Rexen will take some heat as he tries to vie for position, trying to figure out the play on the inside of the freezer. Achieve takes down Super, but Rexen's still in it. Only 2 seconds to get the plant down onto the ground. Rexen, no capability to deny with a Nitro, obviously, as he's on Jaeger, but he can fight and frag this out. Can't deny the plant anymore, though. That's going down onto the ground. He's restricted into the 1v2, where he's now going to clutch this out. Plays it slow. Tries to bait out a peek from the player on the softball, but he's not getting it. Trying his best to take one of these fights before swinging, but ultimately, he has to go for it. He has to fight Geo, and in this situation, he has to lose as TSM take the round.
There is no way that our first plant does not go in the offensive favor. That's actually insane. The defense locks it out. Great stuff there. Or excuse me, it actually did end up going to the offense. I was just so used to the Soniqs being on offense. Apologies, guys. TSM actually claiming the first round here with the plant attempt as well. And that's going to be our first full-on plant, as well as plant win in between these two. So very, very big deal, and way to set the tone and bring it back for TSM. They now have the opportunity to seal it out inside of relegation. They're only going to have 2 attempts at this, though. This is a flashback to what we saw last week from the Soniqs. Down 2 rounds. They have to win out 2 to force overtime and then try and bring it back. Can they do it yet again in Playday 5?
All right. Well, the Gamer 6 pick for Yeti and the normal one for Achieved, is we are going to see the Ying brought in. Calling it the Ying because it's only used for 1 round, so it's like you just whip it out real quick and that's it. You never see it again.
Yeah, taking about ace in the hole. It's literally Ying. It's not even ace. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And the reasoning for that, folks, just being that Ying is actually one of the most influential operators on the offense when it comes down to it. Her utility is just so very strong. But nowadays, she is not the same operator as she once was, especially with the amount of utility that the defense has at their disposal to stop throwables. And that's all her kit is about. Smokes and Candelas being those very annoying flashes that not only flash once, but flash, I believe, up to 12 times per ball or something along those lines. It's either 12 or 9, but either way, it flashes at multiple levels and can fully blind out an entire room. And the issue with that is the fact that that would be extremely solid for execute, which means Achieved has to be alive this entire time. You're not going to see Candelas used willy-nilly across the entire map. You might see one used to clear out an area, but usually it's going to be the Smokes and the Candelas coming in at that last second before the execute goes off to really start things off with a massive bang. We'll have to see if TSM are about that lifestyle or if they're going to try and change things up on us. This round already 40 seconds in as the Soniqs are back downstairs with the exact same lineup that we saw prior.
A little bit more of an aggressive hold here in the early round just because they're kind of out and swinging the angles, but that's to be expected considering TSM are nowhere close to assaulting the basement, so they want to be ready in the event that TSM try to take quick control. Obviously, you had that little bit of a swing on the freezer stairs a moment ago, but that just finished off a drone. Stole their only drones that died so far away from them, and then we saw the player in that position rotate pretty quickly back downstairs here. So TSM, once again, a free reign over the entire first and second floor. This 2 minutes is all about intel gathering in the basement, dealing with the utility setup from the Soniqs, and of course the execution when we finally get down to that 20 to 30 second period. Don't expect a whole lot up until then, though.
And you can see right now TSM playing with the Soniqs, playing with them like Play-Doh, just stretching them out thin across this entire downstairs area. Has some drones over towards Big Tower as well, so they could possibly have some influence over there or rotate there if it's a necessity. But as of late, TSM have been working on the front lobby as they get the main hatch open for Laundry. Geo runs in, uses 2 of his Selma charges on that meeting hatch. He'll pop that open as well. So TSM getting a good head of steam on them as they break up this mat. But as we get down to the last minute here, it's going to be a struggle as to where they will be planting. Still plenty of presence here from the Soniqs, and they haven't done the greatest job of baiting out this utility. And that's the big issue with this downstairs area. You have to get all of these hatches open, then begin working downstairs. It usually ends up with the defense with that advantage inside of the utility department.
Well, of course, hopping off the drone real quick as he just goes for a bit of a face check towards the Laundry position. Merc with a really aggressive swing right here, and you can see takes some heat for it too. Loses a chunk of his HP. We are going to see the gas grenades get chucked out from the defense to hold him back, and they'll work to waiting out this next 10 seconds or so and forcing TSM into another 10-second execute. The smoke is used actually to burn the ADS. Now the Candelas are dropping in, blinds out that whole squad defending towards the A side. Achieved is in, but you can see he's got all these players blinded out. They can't even see him, ripping him apart. He's not even getting the kills. It's Chala and Geo that are doing the work. But Grixer, what are you doing right now? He's allowed to run through the entirety of Laundry, picks up the double, gets the third as well before finally being traded to Chala. Rexon just has to hide behind the pillar as the Sonics steal this round right out of TSM's hands.
That wasn't supposed to happen. The Soniqs getting away with this last round, and not even the Soniqs. Let's just stop it right there. Let me back up. Let's analyze this properly. Grixer stopping TSM from not only planting, but also fragging out every single person that tried to kill him, all except for the last man. And there was not enough time for Chala to try and either get a plant attempt or actually have a viable 1v1. Grixer saving the Soniqs at a very, very last second attempt to try and seal out that round. And that's exactly what they needed. That was going off without a hitch for TSM. They just simply didn't have the coverage on Laundry and that rotate into stock like was necessary, and he was able to abuse that. So the Soniqs are able to stay alive right now as we reach our last round inside of regulation, excuse me. Soniqs sticking back to what they know best, and that's the Goyo shield setup up top.
Much more standard second floor setup going to come in here from the Soniqs, mainly in the note that they're not going to leave Attic soft because of the fact that we've seen every other team play that. TSM's the first we've seen, or at least for me personally, in a long time where they actually left that one open for the attackers to take control of, because generally the actual opening of the two walls never gets contested anymore. It's just more of a time waster than anything else, forcing your Maverick to be able to do that, just because you can put the easy denial on the other side from a mute jammer or something like that, and it can't be countered. But as you can see, we don't have any of that denial on the defense right now, so TSM are going to be able to carve their way through that without any issue whatsoever.
Okay, well, TSM out and about now for a possible last round here, if they're able to seal the deal. Yeti and the Soniqs, very similar setup to what we saw prior. Grix are going to be on the Valkyrie this time around. He'll have a possibility to get a Nitro cell that could actually have a lot of influence over what we're doing. Soniqs actually going to have 3 of those at their disposal, so be looking for those into the late round as TSM will be getting a set up here. Going back to exactly what they had been running prior, Achieved back in the bucket to try and get some kitchen play. Chala on the Torchy man himself, if I may say that. The Maverick going to be working on Attic. Still going with that 2 hard breach setup as well, but mostly just looking at what Bolo and Achieve can possibly do with this space down low. If they're able to get enough influence over dorms, this could actually be the attack they've been looking for.
Grixer, a big rebound from him after the first couple rounds of this match weren't really playing into his favor. Look at him now, though. 10 kills on the board here, and an 8 overall inside of the match. Yeti sitting right behind him at 9 and 9. And you got Kansan and Rexon keeping up close, too. Super making impact in the early game. He's gone a little quiet since then, but we've still seen him show up from time to time, especially with those 2 entries in one of the earlier attacking rounds. And unfortunately, didn't lead to much inside of the round itself, but could have been a great setup had the Attic play gone better against the Kids' attack. Seeing Merc here. Some pressure thrown at him from the Kid's window as he continues to hold the outside Attic balcony. looking for a way to work his way in or eliminate Grixer if he gives him the opportunity, but it's a bit of a tough choice. There's pressure that could broil out against him from any of these two angles. Good impact charge works its way in, deals with the shield on the inside of Kids, and potentially allows the Chief to expose Grixer if he can get those skeleton key shots in the right position.
Merc actually getting that from the attic balcony as well, so pretty nifty angle there for him to use for that breaching round. And now Achieved running into some troubles of his own, switching between the skeleton key and his actual AR gets him into some trouble and actually ends up going down. So that's going to be a nice pick here for the Soniqs to start us off. TSM have to try and fight back, but here's the issue now. Only 35 seconds remaining, and they truly don't have a foothold on any part of this site. Still full attic control going towards the Soniqs, as truly only Kitchen playable right now for TSM. Bolo trying to find some influence with these frag grenades, but Grixer just gets to simply sit and wait. They have to try and force their way into sight now. Merc on the dorms window could have a possible swing from him, and it all starts now. Chala's gonna have to swing in as well, but Grixer already picks up one. Multiple kills coming in from the Soniqs members. It's all down to Bolo, and he'll be cleaned up as well. Super making it look easy right now on this defensive round for the Soniqs as they claim round 12, and for the second week in a row, force us into overtime here on Oregon.
Does mean that point totals are going to be reduced for the team that wins this one. Instead of 3 points going to the winner, it's only 2 points now. But the good news for the loser is that they'll now not get nothing. They're at least going to take home 1 point for losing this match as well. Who that loser and who that winner will be, we'll find out in a moment here. And more importantly, we'll figure out how this next round's going to go in a moment as well, since looks like TSM have a quick sound bugs. They need one of their players to reboot very quickly.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to get an OT here. So, guys, we got a full regulation here to talk about. So let's get into it, shall we? I believe that as of right now, how we sit, these defenses have just been way too strong from both sides, just really not able to figure out this Rubik's Cube of a defense. The offense is just not able to find the pressure onto site how they want to, and it really seems to be these utility pieces that are hindering them. We've seen it not only on TSM side, but also on the Soniqs, where they run into this obstacle and they don't necessarily have all of the things necessary to handle that situation. And it's leading to this point where the timer continues to tick down. They're forced into these very awkward executions, and they're losing rounds consistently because of that. Both of these teams only able to find 1 round on the offense, the only differentiating factor being that TSM's was through plants, where the Soniqs was through kills.
A little bit more of an aggressive clear utility, going to get 6 picked in there as the Buck will make its way back instead of the Jackal. Similar pick going to transpire on the defensive side there as well, as they'll sneak in the Goyo to their upstairs hold. Soniq's first defense not going to be in the basement, since the results are slightly more mixed there, that being the only site TSM was able to win against them on the attacking side. They'll instead rely on Kids, where they've had a flawless result so far inside of regulation, and we're going to look to continue that into overtime here.
Yeah, Soniqs going to be starting us out on OT, like you said, and that's a really, really big deal given the circumstances and what we've been talking about this entire time. This has been a defensive, I would just say a defensive showing overall from both of these teams. The offense is once again just not working out, so it's really been a spectacle as to how these defenses have been working and what they're doing to really slow down both of these teams, because as we've seen in the past, neither of these teams are a slouch when it comes to offenses at all, especially TSM having a 61% win rate on their offenses. So this being a very, very big game changer in the grand scheme of things for them. But they're going to have to try and do it again. So we'll see if TSM's 61% win success on offense can try and assist them here inside of this possible last offensive round for them. Nitro Cell out for Yeti, but it's going to get shot in mid-air. Not going to have the influence like he wish it had. But they're also going to have to give up the area. TSM now with control of Trophy, is it seemingly for the time being a default take.
Round not a matter really of if TSM can win the attack. Let's be clear, they have to win at least one of these attacks. This game has been super defender-sided, with I believe only 2 attacking rounds being won throughout the entire course of play so far here. So going into OT with the Soniqs having that second defensive play, they more than likely will end up with an inherent advantage in this OT, meaning TSM has to try and make impact on either this round or the third one, assuming they even get the chance to get there by winning out the second. But let's hold our breath here. We still have the first half of the first round to play out to get us a true leader at the beginning of OT. Rexon has the lineup onto the players on the other side of walking there. But unfortunately for us and him, most of them are actually on the outside, so not going to see too much lead into that actual POV for quite some time when the members of TSM are actually ready to swing. Now, this is some interesting pressure coming in from Bolo here. The frag grenade getting chucked out too, trying to find out players a little bit deeper to the inside of this room, but it's not going to work out. Merc will also take about half of his HP away when he tries to swing in to get out one of those breaching charges to deal with utility on the actual site here.
Well, Soniqs once again doing a great job of delaying TSM, but TSM starting to find some space to work with, especially around the master area. They've already gotten the closet open, seemingly working on the back attic wall for the time being. So we'll see if they can possibly get this leadoff pick that is so desperately needed to make this go off without a hitch. You can see the utility starting to pour in from the defense as well. Goyo shields getting exploded, as well as Toxic Babes poured in from Super. And he's had a solid day here today, 5-4-7 for the team right now, and that's exactly what you want from one of your supportive players, just able to get that utility down as well as find some of those frags. And that's exactly why we're inside of OT. The consistency right now from the Soniqs has been paramount to their success. But with 30 seconds remaining now, TSM have to try and force their way in, and once again, it's all falling apart. But finally, the frags come back for TSM. Shala and Bolo able to find two. Bolo with a double kill now. It's a 2v3 in favor of TSM, and the Soniqs falling apart at the seams. Super in a 1 versus 3 has to try and bring this back, but he can't do it. They lose out their defensive round that they worked so hard to gather in overtime.
As well, the first loss they'll take on this upstairs site, so finally taking losses both there and inside of the basement, and it couldn't have come at a worse time. Like we talked about, Soniqs had been winning a large majority of their defensive rounds, not so much for the attack. They only have 1 round so far from regulation, but the same fate had befell TSM, just picking up their second in that last round of OT. So a big improvement for them and a very big round, because once more, if things continue to play out the way they were in regulation, TSM will have an outright advantage going into this one, considering that 5-1 half. They just need to continue that streak and win one more successful defense on the basement. This map and this match is going to be theirs. But we've got Soniqs pulling out the trick as well. They're going to bring their Ying into the fold for this round.
Oh, this is going to be a very, very important round here for the Soniqs, and that's why they're going to pull out all the stops. The Ying coming into play, as our good friend Blue just said, as well as the Lion. Super back to Habana, which is something that we see him play here on all the time, and he'll be dealing with these hatches. Now, he's the only hard destruction on this entire squad right now. They do have 2 other options to bring secondary hard destruction, but instead they brought stun grenades as well as smokes for those 2 operators. So the Soniqs set up to play against TSM as they'll go back to basics, or at least back to what we saw prior inside of their setup. We'll see if it has the same amount of influence given this Ying pick coming in, but this actually could be quite the play here from the Soniqs given the Lion-Ying combo. Lion holds them still while Ying destroys them.
Attackers are moving out to locate a bomb and defuse it.
Well, for TSM, this is their chance to shut the game down here and now and end in an 8-6 score line. Unfortunately, not going to be able to take those 3 points for the win anymore. Only 2 because we're in OT, but at least make it a definitive +2 win compared to the fully loaded 15 rounds that'll be coming up after this, should they fail, and should suddenly the attacking sides take over this game with 2 attacking wins in a row here. Let's find out as the Soniqs are just now starting to move into the building as well, just taking that initial control over towards Big Tower and the front lobby, like has been the pattern for pretty much this entire map. Really no aggression coming out from that basement hold, save for 1 to 2 players holding staircases. So I see Rex and Bree firing onto that doorway there, since that is the freezer stair going down into the basement. But like I said, none of that coming out for TSM in the midst of this round, so the Soniqs get that early control and have this extra minute and a half now to set up and gather intel about how to breach TSM's own setup in the actual basement.
Well, a minute off the board now as we see the hard destruction coming down from the Soniqs, and specifically Super on that Habana. And with her recent changes, it just makes her even stronger when it comes to these hatches, able to change up the formation of the pellets anywhere from 2 to 6, 4 in there as well, if you want to know the other option. And that's usually what we see utilized for these hatch breaks, is those 4 pellets getting set down, because that's the requirement in order to actually get those hatches open. Usually, or back in the day at least, you had to set all 6 down and shoot 2 off if you wanted to try and do like a hot drop or something like that, but now you have the option naturally with her utility, which is a really, really cool thing. Thank you, Ubisoft, for changing that up, as it makes her even more viable nowadays. But as for the Soniqs, this offense is actually going quite well. They've already got all of these hatches open, starting to apply pressure to site. They've moved Grixer down Laundry stairs, as this is starting to look like a freezer attack.
Already 2 players working their way down into Laundry as well. They're not fully convinced of these positions. They have used them previously in order to negotiate for their first entries onto the site on previous attacking rounds, but are they going to use it once again? Some good drone intel coming out there as well from Rexit, I believe. Is they're going to be able to sneak that one through the drone hole, get the spot on Bolo and one other player before going down, and now they'll be able to flash them out. Bolo forced to the inside, but he still gets a kill while fully concussed down, partially blinded. Gonna go for number 2, but Grixer gets the better of him here. Kansan finding a frag as well has kept us even into a 3v3 as Soniqs have begun the take, and they've got a good amount of time for this. They've begun it early as well. Still 30 seconds on the clock. Plenty of time to play out this remaining 3v3.
Oh, Super with such a strong position as well inside of Freezer. The only issue right now is such minimal time, as well as Grixer. The top frag right now for SQ being on literally 1 HP. This is going to be on a knife's edge as of right now. Super gets the big pick that was needed to try and put this plant down, locking things together, trying to get the damage off. It's Merc to try and seal it, but Kansan instead that swings through and wins our second offense in a row here. We're going to max overtime, where TSM have to do it once again. The basement defense, not good enough.
I don't know how we've suddenly changed the storyline so much.
What is happening
from
right
what
now?
was happening before? Keep in mind, 2 out of 12 of the regulation rounds, 1/6. That's it. We're won by the attack. Suddenly, 100% of the rounds being won here in OT. So definitely a lot of learning as you go here for both the teams' attacking sides as they try to figure out the defensive setups. But to both teams' credit, it's working. Suddenly the game has changed, and both TSM and Soniqs are able to negotiate one additional attacking round here in OT to take us to that final round, as Stokes was saying. And now the question is, are Soniqs going to be able to fend off the attack from the basement once again, or do TSM have the winning strategy once more to pierce the veil on a second setup for the Soniqs?
Oh, this round is truly incredible. I honestly think it's going to be slow beginnings once again for TSM, but when it comes down to execute, this is going to be so intense right now. TSM not opting for the Ying this time around. We did see them put Geo onto Hibana. Achieve going to be offering up Bunk once again. We have the Yana in play for Bolo still as well, so this overall could be quite the solid round. I think that the biggest story on TSM's roster for the time being has got to be Geo and Chala stepping up to the plate when it matters most inside of that hard destructor / support positioning. Chala currently 11-5-9, as well as Geo 10-2-10.
See that setup once more deployed here by the Soniqs. Also keeping that single panel soft, just like TSM had been doing in their rounds also here. Aside from that, they're taking a look at the TSM attacking lineup. Not much in the operator department going to be changing here from what I can tell the last time that they played this attack. Still going to see the Buck in play for Achieve, which should be an interesting little addition to this one on top of the usual play from Geo, Chala, Bolo, and Merc. They're bringing their usual operators here. Merc already working his way in through small tower and dealing with one of the cameras as he works his way down the hallway. Needs to be careful on this turn, as this is usually where the aggression comes from if there's a player playing aggressive on the inside of Freezer. But as you can see, Kansan's a little bit preoccupied with reconstruction efforts deeper in the site, so he's not going to be able to help out with that for this current time.
Yeah, I gotta make sure you get, your T in there, make sure everything's square, make sure those support beams are all right,
Supervisor's coming any minute now, so he's got to make sure that the job's done right.
Hey! Everybody get your hard hats on. The boss is coming. All right, make sure. Gotta be OSHA approved.
I don't know why we're
here.
doing reconstruction with guns. That's
Sir, I thought we were supposed to have jackhammers for this job. Just shut up and work,
That's the construction company's MO. That's why they get so much business, because everyone's more just curious about how they do it more than anything else. It's like, wait, you guys use actual guns to do this? That's crazy. I gotta see that.
Siege actually, Team Rainbow actually isn't a company up against, counterterrorism. In fact, actually, they're a full-on construction company.
Demolition
that actually just renovates the whole place.
They only knock things down, though. They don't put them back up. So
yeah, exactly. That's your job. We just knock it down. That's all we're good for.
Either way, though, let's take a look.
Yeah, exactly.
TSM starting to put some pressure on the hold. Sorry, guys, didn't miss much there in the actual round itself. Just TSM sitting on their drones for about a minute there as they continue to gather intel and set up counters for the utility set up on the inside for the Soniqs. We're going to see Bolo chuck a nade, and that will deal with the reinforced shield, or actually, no, excuse me, it won't deal with the shield that's down the hall. It's what it was supposed to deal with, but as you can see, Super still has one, so the job has failed. Super's still going to be a problem for Achieved and the rest of TSM if they do go for this swing to the inside.
Well, they still have some grenades, but the issue is they're on Charlotte, so don't know exactly how they'll handle
He's way
this
off.
elbow area. Yeah, and that's the problem. Charlotte seems to be the possible lurk down Freezer. He's going to get rid of a camera as TSM still trying to find some space to work with near the actual site. Currently waiting above Freezer as well as E-Box. At any moment in time, this could pop off. It seems to pop off with Bolo as Merc's going to get fully stunned by his teammate. Grixer gets the frag back. Yeti looking for one as he won't be able to find Ash, obviously, as Merc will be playing just outside here, but oh no, the barrel now found out. Merc with one, Yeti with two, Yeti with a double kill now, and Kansan seals it out. The Soniqs do it. TSM can't win Oregon, a map that they haven't played in forever, and for the third week in a row, the Soniqs seal it out. What a game from them, and the Soniqs take first place. Something I thought I would never say last season as they top the NAL.
A comeback from the Soniqs also there. Remember, they were down 1-5 at halftime there, and they're able to run it all the way back to win it fully in OT at 8-7. Beautifully played by them, especially on the defensive front there. TSM, in the meantime, a lot of work to do on their attacks. To be fair, take me set for the Soniqs here, but either way, the Soniqs closing out with some great play. Even a nice welcome addition of the Ella shotgun coming in on that final round as well there. Not a gun we see making too often of an appearance, but seemed to have worked very well to hold that E-Box position against the take from TSM.
Oh, absolutely. That Eva, the difference maker truly inside of those engagements. Obviously, the Scorpion, a really, really strong weapon as well. But given the close proximity of E-Box, that shotgun can make a world of difference. And it definitely did there for the Soniqs, and the Soniqs able to run it back like we were talking about before. This is just unprecedented. I did not expect this from them given the circumstances inside of that first half of that 5-1 finish, but we're here now. The Soniqs on top of the mountain. Granted, stage 1 isn't done yet, but this is the first time that we've seen this team grasp on to first place and really actually control this entire region. This has got to be the biggest deal for Super right now, especially.
Absolutely the case. Like I said, he came very close with the last roster last year of trying to solidify a legacy inside of stage 1, ultimately falling off as the year went on. Things seem much more promising, however, here in the second year of the NAL. We're going to have to see if that will continue in their future game days. For today, though, they are victorious, and as well, Stokes and myself will be finishing off the day, folks. So thank you all very much for tuning in for us. Intero as well as Kicks will be casting the final 2 games. Stick with us as we're going to go to a short break, and when we come back, Valley and the Analysts will break down that second match and get us